Hey, what's up? This is Scott with Level Up Tutorials. In this video, we're going to get started by installing Gatsby and getting started with a project. Let's get going on that right now. Okay, to get started, we're going to head to Gatsby.js.org, and here you can do some reading about Gatsby if you'd like. However, we're just going to dive right into it, and you can head to the docs section, or you can just follow along with what I'm doing here. Now, this series assumes that you have Node.js installed, so if you don't, head to the Essential Skills JS video installing Node.js, and that way you can actually get Node installed and have this up and running. We are also going to be using the command line, which I am going to assume that you are familiar with. If you are not, there are some command line tutorial videos on this channel available as well. What we want to do first and foremost is install the global command line utility for working with Gatsby. And we can do so with npm install ---- global and then Gatsby-CLI for command line interface, okay? So we're going to hit enter here, as what this does is going to install Gatsby globally. And if you are getting some permissions errors, you'll want to go ahead and just Google npm install global permissions errors, and there's a one-liner that will fix it, or you can simply just do sudo npm install Gatsby, all this stuff. The sudo isn't the recommended version, but it is quick and dirty and will get you here, okay? So what we do have now is we have the Gatsby command line interface installed, and we can start to use this to actually get us a new site. And we can use this simply by typing in Gatsby. Now I'm in my directory where I keep websites, so I can have a new, and then the file for this is just going to be levelup-blog, okay? You can name this anything that you would like. Now I'm using the word blog here because Gatsby is often used for blog type content. It is, however, also used for basic static sites. So we can hit enter here and have this create us a new Gatsby site. And we're going to be going over exactly what that means in a second. So what this install tool is going to do is basically get us set up with our build tool. It's going to get us set up with all of the files that we need. And once we actually just get going and actually set this site up into build mode, you're going to see a basic full website, well, with very, very, very little effort. And that's really the beauty of Gatsby, is that it's going to allow us to not have to think about that kind of stuff, and we're going to get a blazingly fast website for very little. Okay, so now that we have our site created, we can simply just change directories into the levelup-blog or whatever you called your site. And we can run the command Gatsby space develop. Now Gatsby develop is going to put us into what's called a hot reloading development environment. So this is going to be the environment when you make changes, you're going to be able to see these changes happening live in your Gatsby site. Okay, so it looks like things are finishing, and as we get going, you're going to go ahead and see a URL pop up. Now the default URL is going to be localhost:8000. So let's go ahead and use this URL. In addition, we also have access to a graphical URL as well. For the remainder of this series, I'm going to go ahead and assume that you have both the localhost port 8000 up as well as the graphical URL, and I'm going to tab between these. Now, if you don't know too much about GraphQL or graphical, have no fear, we're going to be going over quite a bit of that. And if you like GraphQL, there's an entire series on Level Up Tutorials for React Native with GraphQL right now. So there's even more GraphQL content and lots more coming, because let me tell you, I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan. So you're going to see over the course of this series a little bit about GraphQL. We're going to be talking a lot about it because GraphQL is one of the ways that Gatsby handles your data. So as we dive in, you're going to get to know a little bit more about how Gatsby overall works. But let's talk a little bit about the big picture stuff. Gatsby is a static site generator, as in this site, if we were to look at the source, is going to be HTML. And while a lot of the site isn't fully generated, as in we're simply just getting the body and an ID of body, that's just simply because we're in what's called the development mode. Now, the development mode is going to treat this as sort of a non-static site, as in when we write our code, everything is going to be React-based and it's all going to be dynamically created on the front end. However, when we build our site, we're going to be getting an HTML file fully rendered out for every single page on the site, and and those files are going to load extremely quickly. Now, after the file loads, it's then going to use React for doing all of the client-side switching. So therefore, the initial load times are going to be insanely fast because you're getting a straight-up HTML file, just like back in the day when you wrote a standard HTML site. Now, if you are not familiar with React, you'll want to check out the React 16 for Everyone series on Level Up Tutorials. This series is also going to assume that you know React because a large part of the front-end programming in Gatsby is done through React. Okay, so we now have our Gatsby site up and running in development mode, and if we were to run Gatsby build, you'd be getting a fully built version, or Gatsby serve would start a local HTML server for testing the built site. Those things are going to be things that we will cover as we go, but as you can see here, we do in fact have a website up and running, and if you give this thing a refresh, you can hardly see the page refreshing. It is fast, these sites are very fast, and this is development mode, which is even slow compared to the fully built out site. Okay, so as we get into it in the next video, what we're going to be doing is diving into the files that come with Gatsby, and we're going to be talking about the file formats, we're going to be talking about the file structure, and basically everything you need to know to sort of know where to go to do things and to make web pages. Okay, so check it out. This is Gatsby. We are now up and running with our first Gatsby site, and we're going to build on this. Initially, we're going to be pulling in data from a markdown source, then we're going to be pulling in data from other sources such as CMSs. We're going to talk about hosting. We're going to be talking about all the little bells and whistles for working with things like styled components, working with images, working with external JavaScript, all sorts of awesome stuff. If you'd like to learn even more about Gatsby, the most exciting static site generator around, head to leveluptutorials.com/pro and sign up to become a pro. Get access to all this series and more, like the ones I mentioned in this series: React Native for Everyone, React Native Level 2 React Native with GraphQL, React for Everyone. Basically, get your React skills up to par where you can build awesome, fast sites through Gatsby. As always, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.